Just when the caterpillar thought the world was over, it emerged and spread its wings, the beautiful butterfly that it is. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming out on this awesome Head of Pride. Here we are in Toronto. This is World Pride, everybody. This is big. You know, on a scale of 1 to 10, this is way off the charts. This is huge. World Pride here in Toronto, in conjunction with the Human Rights Conference, the International Human Rights Conference. And much of what's going to be spoken about at that conference are the rights of people regardless of their gender identity, their gender expression, and their sexual orientation. Because at the end of the day, we are all just people. So as Michelle alluded to in my introduction, I've had quite the transformation, I've had quite the journey. Indeed, when I was born, a few years ago, the doctors declared, quite rightly, on observational criteria that are used, that I was a boy. What the doctor was unable to see at that point in time, of course, was what was going on inside my head. What's in my brain? How do I feel about myself? Because really, you know, our body is just the carrier. It's just the vehicle by which we transport ourselves around. Ourselves, our sense of self, our true essence and spirit lies within us, not in the carriage. So I went through turmoil because I just did not understand it. I did not understand what was happening to me, so I had 55 years of self-hatred. This was a time, what I had done during my first puberty. Anybody been through puberty? Would you like to do it again? Yeah, twice. So, through the first puberty, and what I did was I sexualized how I felt, because that was the only frame of reference I had. And so therefore I decided that I was disgusting, I was a deviant, I was dirty, I was a freak, I was a pervert, I was all these kinds of things. Of course I wasn't, but I didn't know better. I really didn't know any better. After 45 years, I finally decided to talk to somebody about it. For the very first time ever, I talked to somebody about it in late 2007. I then went on a 3-year mission to find a cure. Can you believe this? Seriously? I tried to find a cure. By the way, there isn't one. Actually, there is. Because when I finally, after 3 years, walked into my therapist's office, and for not the first time, plonked myself down and said, "Cure me." And she said to me, "I think we did that already." I then spent the next 3 years dealing with the technicalities and the complications of changing my gender expression. Did I at any time change my sense of self? No. You see, I always knew that inside this body of mine, inside this facade, was the woman. I had always known that femininity was my dominant sense of character. But I didn't realize how I could express it, how I could deal with that conflict, until I'd started to work with some professionals and work with some people and come to understand, because I didn't at the time, the difference and the distinction between gender identity, gender expression, and sexual orientation. Along the way, in all of this celebration, in all of this transformation, in all of this release, and it was a huge release, the letting go of all of the constraints that were holding me back, there was more grief. There was loss, significant loss, but it wasn't mine. You see, my transformation affected others. It affected my friends, my colleagues. I was in IT too, so it affected people within the businesses that I was in. It affected my vendors. It affected my extended family. But most importantly, it affected my close family. So we have those three circles of people that are close to us, circles of influence. The third circle being those colleagues, being those acquaintances. They don't have a heck of a lot invested in us. So you know what? If something big happens like this and we go through some changes, yeah, well, whatever, right? Yeah, I can move on. When we get into the second circle, it's a little bit more investment. We're a little bit closer. There's a little bit more to lose. When we get to the first circle, that's when it gets really difficult. I had a partner, a wife, of some 23 years, to whom my revelation was a complete and utter shock. You see, I had been so successful as a chameleon that she had absolutely no idea what was coming or what hit her on that May day of 2008. To her, what she experienced was the death of her husband. I was the bitch that stole her husband. So to her, she needed, and indeed did, go through those 5 stages of grief. In fact, I'd like to say she's gone through them, but unfortunately the loss was so devastating that she's still stuck with incredible bitterness and anger. And it's completely understandable, don't get me wrong. The biggest struggle I had with all of those years of depression was because, not so much of my gender expression, but because of the lies and the deceit. I couldn't go on lying to the people I loved. So we see from huge transformation comes loss and grief and heartache. And I think one of the things that's been absolutely the hardest part of my entire transition, really we call it a transition. And the hardest part of all is to see those around me suffer as a result of this. But it wasn't a choice, you see. When we're born with the body. We didn't choose the body. When we're born with the brain. And we don't get to choose the brain. So my body was not a choice. My brain, my sense of self, my sense of identity, my sense of true spirit and essence has always been the same. The only thing that I chose was how I expressed myself. So now remember back in the early 60s, late 60s, early 70s, as I was growing up, I had no frame of reference. There was nothing by which I could get a grasp on this and understand it. So the only thing I could do was meet society's expectations. And society said, if you have a dangly bit, then you're supposed to behave this way. Yeah? Anybody got dangly bits? No, that's it. You see, and this raises a very good point, and especially in Pride Week, because what's down there is actually nobody's business, right? I mean, unless I'm going to have a relationship with you, right? Unless I'm actually going to have a relationship with you, Does it matter? I don't think so. Does it change who I am or what I can do? No. You know? So, champagne on you, whoever that was. Drinks all round. So, whenever we go through a transformation, and it doesn't have to be as radical as this one, okay? A midlife crisis, a change, a new home, a new house. We need to understand the impact on those around us and give them the space and the time to heal. The time to come to terms with what this all means for them. The support, the energy and the resources to handle that monumental change. I will always love everybody I've always met, just as I love you all this evening for listening to me. Thank you so very much.